Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 38. Happy Thursday. We are officially on vacation for a weekend.
It's not really a
It's not
vacation.
really a vacation. We don't have work tomorrow.
We're not off next week.
Yeah, and we'll be off a few days next week. But we're super excited. We get to pick up Claire from school tomorrow, so that's really exciting. Thanks for the comments and DMs we got about first apartments. We had fun reminiscing about that, and then we were thinking about like what first car did you ever have? And I have a good story about that. I could go first if you want.
Go first.
Okay, so my first car that I bought like brand new with my own money, I was 19 years old. No, 20. I take that back. And I had a job where I wanted to be a real estate agent, but you had to be 21 in order to be one in Illinois. And I thought I would get experience by working at a real estate office. Unfortunately, that office was 3 bus rides from my house. So, literally, for a year, I had to take a bus to take another bus to get another bus to get to my job and back. And it was very stressful because it was like a chain of reaction. If you missed one, then you had to wait, and it was just like a
You're
whole
not gonna
thing.
cry, are you? You look upset
I
about
still
it.
remember it. It was hard. So anyway, so I decided I actually was about to turn 21. So I knew I wanted to sell real estate and thinking like, oh, I'm gonna be a realtor. I need to take people around. I need a 4-door car so that people can be in the back seat. So I wasn't gonna get something super tiny. So and my budget was a Ford Escort. Do they even make those anymore?
I don't think so.
I don't think so
They
either.
because they change the models,
Yeah.
every so
So
often.
it was a 4-door, black. I loved it. And it was just amazing. So, however, the first week after I had it, I drove it to a friend's house, showing it off. And when I got in the car, it wouldn't start. And I was like, this is impossible. I have gas in it. I don't even know what to do. I had to call my dad. He had to come pick me up. We left it there, and then I called the dealership, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And so they ended up picking it up, and it turned out that there was some inertia switch that got disengaged, so the gas wasn't getting to it. It was like a whole deal. So anyway, I had to go
Was it
through.
automatic or manual?
It was manual. Wait, manual, automatic.
Okay,
It wasn't stick shift.
right.
Yeah. I always get confused by that. I'm like, what is it
I
again?
should have said. I should have just said section.
So anyway, it was a huge fiasco trying to get a new car, and then it was like a few weeks later, but it all ended up working out. That
Nice.
was my first car.
My first car wasn't even mine, actually. What I can't remember. I think I was already in. Might have already been in law school, but in any event, I was living at home, and my parents bought. I can't remember what car they had at the time. I think they had a very nice Volvo, a
I was gonna say a
newish
Volvo.
Volvo. Well, they had a few, but they bought a used Volvo just to have an extra car around the house, and I used that a lot. And one of my sisters was actually living at home; she also used it, but it was like I don't think it could go over 60 miles an hour. And I drove it all over the place. So I drove it
Not
on the
like shaking.
expressway. Yeah. I drove it, like up and down Lakeshore Drive and stuff like that, going to visit. That's why I think I was still in law school because there were other people working at the same firm, the same summer internship or whatever you want to call it. And we'd go hang out with other people. That car was, I mean, it was reliable. It wasn't broken down, but it looked terrible and it was kind of embarrassing. But the first new car I had, I absolutely loved. It was still one of my favorite cars. But there's two funny things about it. First of all, I was totally set up. And I knew I was being set up because the first job I had as a lawyer, I traveled a lot and I would go down to Tampa all the time. We represented the Home Shopping Network in a big lawsuit, and they were located in St. Petersburg. So we'd fly in and out of Tampa. And we were doing everything as cheaply as possible. So you'd rent the cheapest possible car, which at the time we went through budget because the firm had a connection with budget. And so, I mean, they always have these,
Right.
they always have preferred, vendors, whatever. So anyway, so I had rented like a Nissan Sentra, like the cheapest, most boxy little car. And I get to the Tampa airport and it's like a Sunday night and I was going to be there all week. And they say at the rental counter, like, oh, we don't have any more of those. We ran out, but we will upgrade you for free to, this was like 1988, to a brand new 1989 Nissan Maxima. Now, I had
It's a
no
very
idea.
nice car.
Well, but at the time, I didn't think so because at that point, the Nissans were all really boxy and very bland and boring looking and everything like that. They looked like cars out of the 1970s, even though it was late 80s. But they had just redesigned like every model. And so I take the keys and I go. It was at the car was parked at the top of the parking deck. I go to get the car, and it's this beautiful, sleek, modern-looking car. And I'm like, you got to be kidding! Because I had a friend who had a Maxima that it was the old version. It was
And you're
all
like, and I get
boxy
to drive
and
this
everything like
all
that.
week.
Right. And I knew that it was like a nice car, like it was kind of a luxury model, so I knew it was nice on the inside, but it looked terrible, the older ones. This was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was spotless. And I drove it around Tampa for a week, and I was like disappointed to have to turn the car in at the end of the week and fly home. And I said to someone else who I was involved with at the time, I got back because we were looking for a car. I came back home and I said, we're buying this car.
This is it.
And I knew that I was being had. Like I knew that Nissan was saying, let's put these brand new cars in these car rental places so business people will fall in love with them and buy them. I knew I was being had, and I was happy to be had because I loved that car. So that's the first part of the story. The second part of the story is that my father was fanatical about manual transmission. My dad did not believe in automatic transmission. He thought it's not a real car unless it's stick shift. And everyone in my family drove stick shift. My mom did, my sisters did. At that point, like every brother and sister-in-law did, everybody drove stick shift. And I had only driven stick shift a few times. I mean, I wasn't completely new to it. We had a VW
That's the worst.
Rabbit.
I learned how to drive stick on a Rabbit.
Oh.
It's like,
and it's still kind of the case. German cars, they really don't want you to enjoy driving. So
they want you to stall.
Stick shift in a German car is, fuel efficient and utilitarian, but no fun at all. Unless it's like a super expensive Porsche or Audi or something like that.
Right.
But, in a Volkswagen Rabbit, no thank you. But I'd also driven another model Volvo that had stick, and that one was actually kind of cool because it was a really, really old Volvo
did the buses
wagon.
you guys had?
Oh, they all did.
Okay.
In fact, Volkswagen didn't even put automatic transmission in those microbuses until like the mid 70s. So all the ones that we had growing up, that was my parents' car of choice, were
Since
like,
you had so many kids crammed
yeah,
in
they
there.
were like 60s and early 70s. So they were all stick shift. They had a giant steering wheel. It was like driving a real, like a city bus. Yeah, it was kind of like flat instead of, up thing. And the big stick shift that came up.
I've never even sat in a microbus.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even.
Oh yeah. But anyway, so here's the thing. So my dad was fanatical about stick shift. He was like, you got to learn how to drive a real car and everything like that. So and the other person in the story happened also to drive stick shift, right? So when we were looking for a new car, we're like, fine, let's buy the manual transmission because all the Nissan models came with it in those days. So we went to this dealership and we had to order the car because all the cars on the floor. It was ridiculous. And they hate it when you do that because they want to get rid of the inventory because they're paying.
And you want to walk out with a
right,
car.
They're paying a loan on their car. They want it out so they don't have to keep paying for it anymore. But anyway, so we go into the place. We go through all this trouble to order the car. Like a kind of a gunmetal gray 1989 Nissan Maxima, manual transmission, leather interior, all this stuff. Very proud of this car. We go and we pick it up. Oh no, it was really cool too because they were all analog dials, nothing, no digital thing in there.
Right.
So it was really cool, and they were white dials with black numbers. But at night, when it got dark and you turned the headlights on, they reversed and they were black dials and all the numbers lit up. It was badass. It really was. It really was. And it had the same engine as like a whatever. What was the 300, the Nissan 300, the
I don't know.
kind of the two-door sports car. Anyway, that car was so much fun to drive. And it turns out that at least in those days, Japanese car manufacturers knew that, manual transmission should be easy. That car was a pleasure to drive.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'd driven stick shift before, but this car was like,
When you learn how on a Rabbit, and then you drive a nicer or luxury car that's stick, and it's like
it's not even the same thing.
Yeah, your arm doesn't hurt. It's so smooth.
Yeah.
It goes back. So did you think that was a favorite of mine that I knew how to drive stick shift? You had a stick shift car.
But the difference is that almost every woman I knew did, so I didn't assume.
I
that
liked
it was
learning how to do it, and we've always said like later on if we ever run the Amazing Race, that's one of the things they have to drive, and nobody knows how to drive a stick.
But wait, I'm not done. So I went through all this trouble to get this car. It was a beautiful car. It was so much fun to drive, and not long it was in the summertime, so it's probably like late June, early July, something like that. So we went to my parents' house not long after that to show off the new car.
As you do.
And I was telling my dad, oh yeah, and you'll be very happy to know that it's manual transmission. And my dad looks at me dead in the eye and says, "Oh, I would have bought the automatic."
And you're like, what?
And I swear to God, that was part of the reason for buying that car was to impress my dad. And he would have bought the automatic. And the funny thing too was that we saved some money getting, it was cheaper in those days.
Right.
Now it's just impossible to find, but it was cheaper to get a car with stick shift back then. But we blew whatever we saved on the manual transmission by getting the leather interior. So
it all evened out.
It was ridiculous. It was not as much fun to drive as the car that I had when we met.
That was
which
an
was a
amazing
little
car.
Acura Integra. Again, I swear,
Two-seater.
Japanese cars with stick shift.
It did have a back seat, but it was very tiny.
It had a back seat, but it was two-door, so it wasn't a four-door.
Right.
And it had a tiny little gear shift it was just so much fun, You could drive really easy. That was even easier to drive than the Maxima. Then we met, and we got married.
Wait a second. Tell them about the car the favorite car of mine that I had when we met.
But I just have to get this off my chest.
Okay, go.
We met. I love that. I love the Integra even more than the Maxima. Then we met. Then we got married, and then we had a baby, and then I had to get rid of the Integra. And what did we buy in its place?
It was it was a wagon, and it was
a Saturn wagon. We bought a Saturn wagon. I went from also manual transmission.
Yes.
I went from this just fantastic, really, and it was like such a single person car, and I was single when I bought it.
Right.
And then didn't know
Here
I was
comes family.
Yeah, then didn't know I was not only going to get married, but have a child fairly. More than 9 months afterwards.
Yes.
But still fairly quickly.
And the problem was that since you had to put like the seat up, trying to put the car seat in there, it was...
We drove our oldest, we drove Emma home from the hospital, and it was like, we got to get rid of this car, man.
It was like immediately.
It was the first time that we had a baby with a car seat in that car. And it fit. It's not like it didn't fit, but nah. We had to get rid of it. So I went from the Maxima to the Integra to the Saturn wagon.
And I think it was green too.
It was green, and the worst thing
I don't even know why we picked that color.
The worst thing about this, it was a decent car, and it was reliable and all
also
that.
kind of on the smaller side.
It was on the smaller side, but there's an advantage when, you're driving in city traffic and all that. But the thing of it is like, if you got the manual transmission, it's not like they rewarded you for being a person who could drive stick shift.
Right.
It was kind of a dumpier version of it if you got the one with stick shift. Like the bumpers weren't as nice and things like that. So that was the other thing is like it looked like, it just didn't look as nice. If you got the one with automatic, it was a little bit sleeker and they had nicer bumpers and all that.
But the car that I had when we met, that I'm sure you were just like, this is amazing. It was totally me though, like so me. And they don't make it anymore either, I don't believe.
No.
Geo Tracker convertible, bright yellow. It was so sweet.
Geo was a Toyota subsidiary, right?
I
Or
think
was it a
so.
joint? Was it one of those? I'm trying to think. Was it one of those like Saturn was a joint venture between GM and some other company. I can't remember
So
who.
I'd wanted that car for a while, and then, but even though I was like 22 when I got that, because I got it right before we met, 22, 23. But I took my dad to the auto show in Chicago to show him the car, to see, just like how it is. But you know how like you go to a car dealership and it's like I knew what I wanted. I already done the research and everything. And then went into the car dealership. They didn't have what I wanted. The one they had on the lot had giant wheels on it, not the color I wanted. And I was like, yeah, I'll take it.
I'm sorry, I was wrong. It was actually it was a
Oh,
Chevrolet.
yeah.
It was a GM, like kind of like a cheap brand, and now but they still sell a Chevy Tracker
Oh my
now. You can buy a
God.
Chevy Tracker now.
But it didn't have a hard top on it. It had the soft top on it. So to actually take the top off was quite an ordeal. And I didn't have a garage. So I had to like make sure that I put the top on and zipped it up and everything. But actually, we got that right after we got the Saturn. We ended up getting rid of that one too. Because same thing. It was like having a car seat and a
But the thing I
convertible.
never got about that car is that since you drove stick shift,
Yes.
you bought that car with that was automatic
Yes.
and no four wheel drive.
No.
So when
It
it
was ridiculous.
snowed,
It
it
was
was like driving on four balloons. It had those big tires, but it didn't have four wheel drive.
It
So
did-
you're kind of like,
It was, it was dicey.
So you could have gotten stick shift and
I
maybe
could've.
four wheel drive and what.
Riding on four balloons. That's funny.
Well, I mean, it didn't handle well in the
Yeah,
snow.
it was horrible in the snow.
It was too lightweight,
Yes.
and it had those giant tires.
Yep. That
And
did nothing.
and it didn't have four wheel drive.
Yeah. Not good.
But the best, probably the best car we ever had, in dollar for dollar, was the $500 1993
Yep.
Nissan Pathfinder. I was at home. I don't know why I was at home. Maybe I was at the office. Anyway, I was working, and you called me. Or maybe
Yes.
you emailed me because there may have been
I think I
some.
called you because it was like we needed to make a decision
Yeah.
right then.
Your coworker
One of my
had
coworkers
this car.
had a car, and it was this, and he's selling it for $500. And I was like, "We need a second car. Let's
Yep.
get it." So, and we bought it that day. We didn't. I think I brought it home. We drove it around the block, and we're like, "Yeah, we'll give you $500. We'll take it."
It was the best $500 we
was.
ever spent. I mean, it was not in great shape.
No.
The one advantage was your coworker had actually taken very good care of
Yes.
it. It's just that it was really old, but it was $500.
Exactly. And we drove that thing for a couple years,
Yeah,
I want to say.
Right. Oh, at least at least
Yeah.
a couple years, and I mean, it had a lot of problems.
It was a little loud.
It was loud. It had no air conditioning, or
Yeah.
the air conditioning
Yeah, the
didn't
air
work
conditioning
anymore,
didn't
and we
work,
were
but-
not going to invest any
No.
money in doing that and fixing anything. And it was also stick shift. But the
Yes.
funny thing about that car, it was this big, bulky, loud thing. It was extremely easy to drive. And the funniest part about it
I know
was
what you're
it
gonna
was
say.
yeah, it was the easiest parallel parking I've ever experienced in my life.
100%.
Made no sense.
Yeah, you could park that
Made
thing,
no sense.
problem.
You could fit within like an inch on either side of the car. It was amazing. Because I used to have to park it on a street near my office that was just always jammed up with parked cars, and you could only park for 2 hours. So I was running out and moving it every
Yep.
so often during the day. But it was great. It was fantastic.
That was like the best
Yeah,
purchase.
it was, and it was, it was like on the one hand you might be embarrassed to be seen in it, and on the other hand you're like, I got this car for $500.
Exactly. And we're taking it to the bank because
Yeah.
we had
Yeah.
so much joy out of that car.
It was great. And then I mean, it didn't last all that long. It died, but
Yeah.
for that amount of
But then
money,
the
it was
best
so
part,
nice.
and if you don't know this, is like if you have a car that you want to sell, you can pretty much sell it the day you put it on Craigslist or something like that. There's somebody who wants to buy it, even if it can't run.
Oh yeah. Well, that car, if I remember correctly, that car was undrivable.
Yeah.
It was undrivable. There. I can't even remember exactly what was wrong with it, but in any event, it died when I was driving somewhere. We had it towed back,
And we're like, we're not going to put any
Yeah,
money into it.
the mechanic looked at it and it quoted us like, I don't know, $1,200 to fix it or something like that. Like, nope.
Yeah.
So we put an ad in on Craigslist or wherever, and a woman bought
Yes.
it who was a mechanic and
Owned her own
had,
tow truck company.
and that was it. She
Yeah.
owned her, but she was gonna fix it up, and she came and I want to say she paid more than $500
She
for the
did.
car.
Yeah.
So we made money on that car. I mean, I suppose if you consider the insurance, we probably didn't make
Yeah,
money on it. But
but
the
still.
fact is, we got more than we paid for it. We sold it in no time. She came with the truck.
Yeah, like the
Pulled
next
it out of
day.
our garage.
And it was out of our garage.
Yeah.
And we had cash in hand.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So that dollar for dollar was the best car we ever bought.
And now we're on Subarus, so that's what we have now. So
Yeah.
which we love.
Although we've gone through a few.
Yes.
But the only negative thing I'll say is that it's going on 4 years now since we bought our 2017 Outback, and the only sad thing was that the Outback does not come with manual transmission.
Does
so
not.
we had to give
we
it
would
up.
have gotten it.
Oh,
yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
We went. One of the reasons why we were looking at a Subaru is because the Forester does, the Crosstrek does. So I thought maybe,
Yeah.
but nah. And that's another one we test drove it and we're like, okay, we're buying this
Yeah.
car.
Done.
Yeah.
We're easy. We can make a decision really fast.
Except it was like a 12-hour experience to buy the car.
As always.
The decision was easy.
Yeah.
The rest of it
The
was
paperwork.
a nightmare. The paperwork.
Yeah. So Vic, you may as well just, bring a sack lunch because you're going to be there all day. So leave a message in the comment. What was your first car? Was it crappy? Did you buy a new car right off the bat? And just let us know what you did. So on Saturday, if our daughter's up for it, hi Claire, if she watches this, we're going to ask her to be a guest on our show on Saturday. So come back and we'll definitely publicize it when it is published.
Yeah.
So we'll see you
We're
guys
going to let
next
her
time.
pick the topic.
Yeah. Talk amongst yourselves. Have a good night. Bye.